All right, at level 3, the big difference is the signs. They're all mixed up. Here, these are two positives. Here, the product is positive, right? The numbers multiply to be positive, but add to be negative. Here, the product is negative, okay? So the difference with level 3 is the signs are mixed up. So I'm gonna point out some of the patterns that you're gonna need to notice. So let's look at this, right? This is a positive product and a positive sum. So we know these two numbers are gonna be positive and positive, right? Like that's the only way that I can multiply to a positive and add to a positive. So in this case, I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to 14 and add to 9. That'd be 7 and 2. Positive 7, positive 2. Okay, now, we talked about in level 2, we talked about this. Well, how can two numbers multiply to be positive and add to be negative? Well, the only way that can happen is if the two numbers are negative, right? Because a negative times a negative is a positive, and a negative plus a negative is a negative. So I'm thinking of two numbers that multiply to 63 and add to 16. And that would be 9 and 7, and in this case, it's negative 9 and negative 7. Okay, now, here is what we haven't seen yet. See how this product is negative? The only way to end up with a product that's negative is to have a negative times a positive, right? That's the only way. To have a negative times a positive is the only way that they're going to multiply to be positive, okay? To be negative, excuse me. Now, I'm going to have two numbers that multiply to 12. The thing is, one's going to be positive and one's going to be negative. So when I go to add them to get the bottom, I'm actually going to end up subtracting them, right? Because one's positive and one's negative, and so there's going to be some positives and some negatives, and they're going to cancel. So what I'm looking for is two numbers that multiply to 12, and when I subtract them, I get 4. Okay, now those two numbers are 6 and 2. Now which one should I make positive and which one should I make negative? Well, here's the thing. I want them to add to positive 4. So I'm going to go ahead and make the larger number, the 6, positive, and the smaller number, the 2, negative. Why? Because look, then I have 6 positives and 2 negatives, and I end up with positive 4. Now, had this been a negative 4, I would have made the 6 negative and the 2 positive. Then they still would have multiplied to negative 12. It still would have been a positive times a negative. But then I would have ended up with more negatives. So for example, here, when I want to multiply to negative 35, what I need is a negative and a positive, and two numbers that multiply to 35, and when I subtract them, I get 2. Now those numbers are 7 and 5. Which one should be negative? Well, the thing is this bottom number, the sum, is negative. So we need to make the larger number negative in order for that to work out. So this is going to be negative 7 and positive 5. Okay, so notice as you work through these, if the top is positive, right, if the top is positive, then these two numbers must have the same sign, either negative if the sum is negative, or positive if the sum is positive. Once this top number, the product, has a negative sign on it, that means that we need to have a positive and a negative, and the larger number is going to have the sign of the sum, right? Like here, for example, I have 7 negatives and 5 positives, so when I combine them, what I end up with is leftover negative 2. Right here I had leftover positive 4 because my larger number was positive. All right, so go ahead and try these, and these are especially tricky because the numbers are a little bit bigger.